G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another cracking episode of Investing in the US. I'm your host, Reed Goosens. Good as always to have you with us here on the show. Now, this is episode two of two, which is the top 10 episodes of investing in the US over the last 5 years. That's right. We have been recording for 5 years, 250 episodes, over 250 episodes of incredible content, guests that have been come on this show to share their exact story about how they've built something from nothing. And we've gone back through time and taken the best 10 episodes and jammed it into two separate episodes, episode 250 and episode 251. And this is the second episode of that top 10 look back. And in today's episode, we're looking at 5 entrepreneurs that are extremely influential in not only my career, but in the careers of so many other people who help them excel at what they do. So really hope you enjoy today's episode. Again, if you do like this show, the easiest way to give back, and you guys have been giving back to me heaps over the last couple of weeks as we've approached the 5-year anniversary of investing in the US, is going onto iTunes and giving that show a 5-star review. It only takes 2 minutes, but it's a great way for our exposure to increase on the platform. Another way, you can also follow me on all the social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by just searching my name, Reed Goosens. And lastly, if you want to find out more about my investment opportunities, head over to reedgoosens.com and click on the subscribe link for our newsletter, and you'll be notified of up and coming new deals that we have coming out here in 2021. Well, without further ado, let's get into the last 5 episodes, the last top 10 of the 5 episodes of the top 10 of investing in the US over the last 5 years. I hope you enjoy. So first up, we are chatting with a great guy, Vinney, Smiley, Chopra. And I recorded an episode with him back in episode 194, I think it is, back in early 2020. And in that episode, we talk about how you scale your business in a year full of COVID. Even though looking back on it, we didn't know COVID was around the corner, but how to scale your real estate business successfully. Vinney himself has been involved in over 27 syndications over his career. He has made a lot of money in real estate syndications through multifamily. He's extremely knowledgeable, extremely successful, and he's just a down-to-earth dude. I've shared this stage with him a couple of times over the last couple of years. I've been on his show. He's been on my show. He's just a truly, truly down-to-earth guy. He also has a coming to America story. He's originally from India. He rocked up to this country with not much in his pocket, a couple of pennies, and he's been able to build a massive syndication business. And now he's giving back to other people, which is super, super helpful and really down to earth of him to be able to give his knowledge back to those people who want to learn about it. So without further ado, let's dive into this snippet of Vinney Chopra. I hope you enjoy.
Reed, actually, I started in 2008 or so, let's say. So we had hired a very nice company from Dallas, by the way, and they were managing 22,000 units back then. And we were just small potato, right? 109 units, because my first one was 14 units. We were managing ourselves. It was not that bad. But when we bought 109 units along with 101 storage units and a commercial building all together, we were finding, my partner and I were at the property a lot more than the managers and then the other people. And they were having difficulty, finding the community manager, maintenance people. That's when we decided, when we bought the third or the fourth asset, I think, we said, let's just start our own company. I said, love it. Love the idea. We were looking around then to find the best property management consultant, and we hired her and paid like $25,000 to $30,000, I think. She flew into San Antonio. At that time, we were buying near Austin and San Antonio. And within 4 weeks, she got our company all started with manuals, with payroll, with hiring, with job descriptions and everything. That was the best investment we did, to be truthful. That was back in 2009 and 10. So Ideal Investment, Ideal Management Group, those are my 2 companies before with the partner. And then Monil Investment and Monil Management are the new companies which my wife and I own fully integrated, So we have had really good luck with, because we get into the pulse of marketing. the billing, the authenticity of the invoicing, because everybody knows that we get gouged, all the time. When it's not your money, they spend more freely and everything. I tell my team, and we give great bonuses in our employees, our team members. Every 6 months, we give bonuses, performance bonuses. They get medical benefits, they get insurance, they get everything. So it's good to build camaraderie and the culture. And that comes when you're vertically integrated.
How many units do you currently have right now?
At the peak, I had 4,100 units,
Yep.
but we have sold quite a lot. My old company, 14 syndications, we just sold the last 2.
Right.
So, we are now selling some more in the Texas area. I sold one in Atlanta also just recently. And we are just, building. I don't know how many we have now, but, selling and buying, and some are on the sale. I just signed a contract for another one in Texas. And then we are looking for picking up about 220 million more worth in 2020. So that's awesome. Where we are getting geared for the next year.
So, but tell me how you've had it. 2018, you didn't pick up anything. How are you picking up 200 million in 2020?
Well, we picked up 87 million this year.
Right.
In just 5 months, because our bandwidth have increased a lot. I can qualify for almost $45 million loan now, with the net worth and everything. So it's just changed the game for me and my partners, and we can go bigger and bigger. We're looking at $100 million deal now, actually.
Wow.
Pocket listing. We just toured another one as we just closed on Tuesday last week. Wednesday, we were touring for the next one.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I think that's exactly, but this is all success, right? Success is great and well done, but there's got to be some challenges along the way, particularly in and around the property management. Property management's a hard game. And I know as being an asset manager for my company, we have 1,700 units. I'm constantly trying to instill ownership on the on-site team.
Yes.
To manage like owners. Now, the sort of conundrum we have is that you pay these on-site managers maybe $45,000, $55,000, and they're managing $20, $30, $40 million assets. How do they think? It's a struggle for me to try to instill in them a culture, even though I use a third-party property manager as I'm the owner, but I want you to think like I think. And it's really tough when, I just asset manage them and they're still third party to me. How did you go about creating that culture in your business to get those on-site managers to own what they do? Because it is tough, right? I'm not saying that everyone out there who owns $30,000, $40,000 or $50,000 can't think like we do, but you have to have the mindset. And if you don't have that mindset, or you feel like you're under the pump, you can sort of lose sight of that. And that's where I've found it very hard to instill that confidence within my team. So what sort of tricks do you do within your culture?
Very, very important what you're talking about. And Reed, I've gone through that, and my companies and my teams have gone through what you're talking about. The biggest decision I made in my company was to bring the accounting very close to where we live, rather than keeping accounting far away, and to have the right vice president of financial affairs. I'm paying her good money, but that's the best thing I ever did, because she started to invest also with me. And then we grew the money, doubled, tripled, and all that. Then her husband and everything. So alliance came, right? That's a big part. Alliance, buying into what Vinney's about, how transparent. Our whole operation is very, very transparent to the investors. They can ask for bids. They can ask for invoices, bank statements, anything and everything. No holds bar in our companies. That's the best thing. So that really brings into our culture also. Hey, investors can show up anytime without telling you. And they're going to be, looking at who is doing what with the leasing and so forth. And I say that in my presentations also to the investors in my meetings. Every quarter, I remind them that, they could fly without telling me, and they can shop the property. They could do this, they could do that, all that. But the big thing is, when I'm out there with them, I spend time sitting down with them and, right from the small, right from the bottom to the top, and then do camaraderie things. We do the crawfish boil, and, we do, special barbecues, and we even have preferred vendors pay for all the food and everything. And, they have budgets. So it's good to even ask them to get involved, and then have incentives. And like I said, we give performance bonuses and all that. So it's just that try to pay them $1 more. That's a big mindset. I always believe that. Would they be really more focused if I paid them fairly and squarely and gave bonuses and all that? So what I find is, in managing all these years, make sure that you're giving them that increase after a year or 6 months, whenever you told them, right? And you do the performance, and then you increase a little bit more, because that $1 increase is going to build their morale. And make sure that you're also having a fund. We have like when Harvey hit, right? So my wife and I donated into a fund. We bought like trucks for our maintenance people who lost their truck, or we gave some money for the families because they got displaced, so we were very much out there, for them. See, right. That's the genuineness of the nature, which makes them more work harder for you.
Next up, I have another cracking Aussie who's been crushing it around the world, and I'm talking about Mr. Daniel Priestley. Daniel is I'm another fanboy of Daniel. He actually grew up on the Sunshine Coast near where I'm from, but he has gone over to take over the world. He is the author of Key Person of Influence. It's a book that has been extremely powerful in my growth as a podcaster, as trying to be a thought leader, as trying to build my own brand. And he is the godfather of talking about that sort of stuff. He is also the co-founder of Dent Global, which we talked about earlier in the last episode about Glenn Carlson. They are partners. This is I don't want to say the brains behind it, but he has definitely been very influential in growing Key Person of Influence, because he was the author of Key Person of Influence, but growing Dent Global into the massive, massive accelerator program that it is today. If you don't know anything about Dent Global, give it a listen. Go and Google dentglobal.com and give it a check it out. Dan has an incredible story of building businesses since the age of 18 years of age and hustling and creating some incredible opportunities for himself. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did recording it.
When I arrived in the UK in 2006, I set up a company called Triumphant Events. And Triumphant Events was an event marketing company, very similar to what we're doing in Australia. But I wanted to really focus in on entrepreneurship. I'd become in love with entrepreneurship, passionate about entrepreneurship. I wasn't passionate about the stock market trading software or any of that. I was passionate about the business and the marketing. I wasn't terribly passionate about the franchise. I was passionate about selling it and running it and doing it as a business. I wanted to get really pure and just focus on entrepreneurship as a discipline. And I started running events in London with entrepreneurs, really successful entrepreneurs and famous entrepreneurs. And we would pay them an average of £10,000 per appearance. So when someone would show up, they'd do a 10 grand keynote and promotion and all of that sort of stuff. But it was about £10,000 per appearance that we would end up paying for these kind of celebrity type entrepreneurs. And we built that into a £4 million a year business pretty quickly. So within 2 years, we were cracking over about 4 million, which is pretty good in the UK. It puts you in the top 1% of businesses type thing. And we were just a standing start launch business. Anyway, what was interesting is that when the GFC happened, on the front page of the London papers, the global financial crisis, it says recession, UK will be in a recession for the next 10 years. And it was all over the front pages of the papers, and it was basically, the sky has fallen in. And at that particular time, we were doing personal development, leadership development, entrepreneurship development courses and seminars and having a great time. But it just dried up overnight. So it was hard, originally it was harder to make a couple of £100 sale than it had been to make a £2,000 to £5,000 sale in the lead up. So anyway, the beauty of that is it makes you do a lot of soul searching, and you start thinking about, what to do and how to pivot and what am I sitting on that's of value and how do we change. And one of the things that was really of interest to people is people wanted to ask me the question I got asked a lot was, why do you pay people £10,000? What's so special about a £10,000 speaker? And some people would come to me and say, oh, I've done speaker training and I'm a really good polished speaker. Will you pay me to be a keynote? I'm like, no, I'm not at all. And I would actually send them an email that says, we don't hire speakers, we hire key people of influence. And that's where that term came from. So it was just this kind of like, I was fascinated by a few trends, Y Combinator for 22-year-olds who could code. I was fascinated by the expert phenomenon, people positioning themselves as experts. I was curious, maybe I should write a book because I was thinking about the idea that all of the people that I was promoting had written a book, and that seemed to be a really powerful thing to do. And I was just playing with that idea. And it all started to come together around this concept called key person of influence. End of 2009, I run a conference called Expand Your Brand. We get 700-800 people in a room, and everyone's pumped about this concept called key person of influence right in the recession. And suddenly everyone's buying, and everyone goes, yeah, I want that. And then we ran a very similar event the following, like 3 months later, and it happened again. And very quickly, we'd very quickly and very easily made maybe £400,000 or £500,000 worth of sales again. And it was like, wow, people are interested in this. And the concept was an accelerator program for 6 months to focus on you being a key person of influence in your industry. And it was just about pitching, publishing, products, profile, and partnerships. And we're just going to work on one of those things per month for 6 months and develop you as a key person of influence. People love the idea then. They love it 10 years later. And basically, that was the beginning. It was just a training program, a course. And then we pivoted into an accelerator. We have a portfolio of companies now. We have 3,000 companies that have been through Key Person of Influence, but we also have hundreds of people who've been through what we call the Threshold Accelerator and the 24 Assets Accelerator, depending on the stage of people's business. So it was just one of those things where we were forced to do some hard thinking about what was of value, and then that produced a really great result.
Talk to me a little bit about the just in hearing how some of the examples that you've said in your awesome speech, about approaching someone and saying, "Hey, I want to do your training." It's a very mano a mano, but yet you built this business in and around digital assets, your book, 24 Assets, key person of influence, being online, being noticed, standing out as that key KPI in your sphere. It's sort of like nearly a dichotomy. Like on one hand, you got your start by just rolling up the sleeves, knuckling down mano a mano stuff, to then pivot, as you said, into a brand that now helps other people try and create this ecosystem of stuff online and all this other great stuff in order to create more sales. So that's such an interesting shift over, call it 20 years, where when you were your early days on the sunny coast to now. And I just wanted to quickly point on that because it's such an interesting thing that I've noticed in my own journey. Mano a mano still works today and is really appreciated in a world that is so much high, content. It just, it's like a fire hose. And so sometimes when you are picking up the phone or you go into someone's office and just shake their hand, people are just like, oh, wow. Like, thanks for coming in. Like, it's great to see you face to face, rather than send them a book or listen to my podcast or download, So talk to me a little bit about that, because I'm sure in yourself, you'd have struggled as an entrepreneur you've probably seen this and laid it out to develop your business now, but it's just such an interesting way of...
Look, our little secret of our business is that we still do a lot of one-to-one and a lot of calls and a lot of sales meetings and all that sort of stuff. So we have a phenomenal digital architecture that most businesses would dream of. 4 best-selling books, hundreds of videos on YouTube, tens of thousands of views per month. And then all of that tends to translate into a few thousand scorecards per month, where people fill in a scorecard at the Key Person of Influence scorecard. Based on how they score, we have a team of people who talk to people, like they're business analysts, they're business advisors on behalf of Dent. And we actually talk to people and say, tell me about your business, tell me what you want to do, where do you want to go? and we have conversations, and those conversations turn into people enrolling onto our accelerator programs if they're a good fit. But it frustrates me because a lot of, and it's heartbreaking, a lot of people pour a lot of money into digital assets and digital ecosystems, not recognizing that even Google picks up the phone and talks to people. So do you know what's crazy? If you look at how Google does its marketing, so Google sends people in the mail physical letters that say, here's a $50 token for you to activate an AdWord campaign. And they actually have this little letter with a punch out little card that you perforate out, and it says £50 worth of Google AdWord credit. Here's how to activate it. As soon as you activate that credit, within 24 hours, you get a phone call from someone who says, I see that you've just activated your credit. Can I talk you through how to set up an ad campaign? Now, Google are doing direct mail and phone campaigns.
Right.
That's how they're doing their advertising.
Google, right?
That's Google. I mean, these guys have got unlimited resources to do whatever works, and that's what works for them.
So break down the 24 asset concept to me, because I know I've read the book, but you've got, through just to go again, key person of influence, entrepreneur revolution, oversubscribed, and 24 assets. Walk through the high level points of all of that.
High level points.
Yes.
So the entrepreneurial journey is very predictable. And it goes through certain phases, and there's 3 chapters to the story, right? So the entrepreneur journey is chapter 1, discover something of value. So figure out what problem needs solving and figure out an elegant way to solve it. And that's called value proposition. It's basically discovering something of value. So you discover that someone's got a garden that needs trimming. You might go over and offer to trim the garden for them, for £50, $50. Right? So you've discovered something of value. It could be something as simple as that, or it could be that a massive company has an issue around intellectual property and you're going to help solve that for them. But discover something of value. That's the first chapter. Second chapter is become an influencer for that. So you move from the value base to the influencer base. And influencer base means people have heard about you, they know you, they like you, they trust you, they recognize you, they've heard your name, they've heard your business name. And they start coming to you, and they recognize that you're one of the top percentage of people, the most trusted people in a particular space. And that's where the money really shows up, the profit shows up. So revenue, paying the bills happens at the level of value, but at the level of influence, you make really high income and really high profit because you're an influencer. So what that might look like is having 10,000 followers on Instagram, or it might look like that if you run an event, people will show up to see you speak. Or it might look like if you launch a promotional new campaign or a new product, people snap it up or pre-register for it because you're involved in it. People might ring you up and ask you for advice. So you're actually an influencer in the space. But then the third chapter is formalizing an asset. So formalizing an asset is turning it into media or software or intellectual property, and essentially building an asset that stands alone, that is of value all on its own. So in that component, you've gone from being an influencer to actually having standalone assets. So if we think about, a Richard Branson, he discovers something of value, student magazine, he discovers something of value, records, music label. He becomes an influencer in that space. Then he starts building a library of signed contracts with artists. And he actually builds up this massive library of all the top artists and all the top albums that he owns the rights to those albums. And then he sells that catalog over to Sony because that is an independent asset in its own right. So it was a journey of value, influence, assets. There's some mistakes that you can make. Number one is staying in the value. So all you're doing is just something of value, and you become commoditized. You compete on price. You compete on how many hours you can work, and it's a horrible game because you're refusing to move to the next stage of influencer. Another mistake you could make is trying to develop assets too soon. You've only just discovered value. You don't have profit or high income yet, and you're trying to create an asset portfolio. And that doesn't work. It's like trying to jump straight into fourth gear in the car and you stall the engine. Another one is that you become an influencer and you refuse to create assets off the back of that, and you get burnt out because everyone wants you, and you become cynical and jaded and pissed off because you've got so many people coming at you, asking you questions, asking you for help, right? And you're just sitting there going, listen, would everyone just piss off? And so the truly successful entrepreneurs, they transition smoothly through the phases: discovering something of value, becoming an influencer, formalizing an asset.
If you've enjoyed these shows, if you enjoyed anything on this podcast over the last 5 years and what we've tried to create here, please share it with your friends. Give it a like on iTunes, give it a like on Facebook, give it a like on LinkedIn. Tell other people about the story that we're trying to create here, trying to help share the knowledge with as many people as possible. I know when I first started this podcast, it was just a labor of love. It's grown into so much more. It's opened so many incredible doors. I'm so thankful to be doing this show week in, week out with an incredible audience like yourself. You rock up every single week. Give me your support, and I just hope I can continue to provide the most cracking content I can over the next 5 years, and let's push it to a decade. Again, guys, if you do have any questions, you can please reach out to me at reedgoosens.com. I really hope you enjoy this stuff. I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for the support that you've given me over the past 5 years, and we're going to push it on into the future. We're going to do it all again next week because we're never going to give up here. So remember, be bold, be brave, and go give life a crack.